Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, welcome, friends, familia, to Regenerative Culture Podcast by Collective Wave with your host, Yoshi Pantera. Today we have a very special guest, Nicolas Cambas from Argentina, an artist and collective catalyst of transformation through art with therapeutical and shamanic transpersonal emphases. He led a nomadic life in over a decade through South America, exchanging culinary and music with Andean Amazonian tribes and their traditional shamanic practices. He develops as a clown, performer, scene director, and also a therapist, and has created a pedagogic program with transpersonal approach called Camino Creativo Creative Path. He teaches and performs regularly in America and Europe. Welcome, Nicolas Cambas.
Welcome, Yoshi, and welcome to all the audience of regenerative culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, regenerative culture is a broad topic, and it's important to understand this special episode with Nicolas Cambas because, like a Gandhi phrase that if you want to see a better world, it starts within ourselves. And in our last episode, we talked a little bit about psychology and neuroscience with Wilson Ochoa. And Nicolas Cambas has a similar approach of psychology and transpersonal awakening through a very interesting topic. Let's him share his new views of what connection with our soul and our body and our mind can be. So, Nicolas, before we start with this amazing topic about how we can approach this in a new way about learning about ourselves, tell us what made you start through this path. How did you choose to learn what you have learned and connect with this approach that you're proposing right now?
Mm. Well, actually, this path is something that I realized or took shape after I was walking it through some time. So, kind of, I started in a certain point to look back and realize it was taking a form I hadn't imagined previously. And basically, the starting point for me was like living a normal life in my in the city where I come from, Buenos Aires. Living with my family, studying in the university. I was 20 years old, and I was quite curious since I was young and since I was a child. And I always had like this, question in front of the things that were taken for granted. And there was a point where I felt that studying in the university and like following the common track was not what was filling my heart and what I was really feeling that was meant for me. But I didn't know what was meant for me. Like I knew that wasn't, but I come like from a quite conservative family and ambience. So there were not many alternatives around, and I was living like in a big city where you are locked inside, all the time inside like this concrete jungle. So the first calling for me was nature. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just as soon as I started getting older, like around 17, 18, I started to go every time, every holiday I had like a little bit more far away and to explore a little bit more and more outside of the known territory. And traveling like opened this possibility of discovering the world beyond the fence. So this mixture of being fed up with the city, a very crazy times. Also, this was around 2001, 2, when Argentina was collapsing politically, economically. So there was not like a big hope in following this track of studying and doing the right things, because anyway, everything was cracking. And this was like a huge invitation for me to start exploring, with this adventurous sense, like of the 20s, of wanting to see the world and wanting to see how things are like. And it started, in holidays, but then when I was 20, 21, there was this holiday when I went out. I was trying out juggling with a friend in the street, like something crazy we wanted to experience. And this led to the possibility of having, a possibility of sustaining myself, barely sustaining myself, but it was enough to keep on traveling and not having an excuse, I need to go back. So we had like a 2-month holiday that became like a 7-year long trip until I came back to Buenos Aires again. And this was the starting of all my research and of understanding and perceiving myself as a clown, and through that as an artist, and through that as a searcher, I guess. Yes. And then, on the road, things started to sum up one after the other, and now we call also this, I don't know, psychology, and we call it in many different ways that started to pop up on the way. But the first approach was traveling, and like kind of the full path, like the tarot, full, that just gets out of the common road. And it was art, circus, and then shamanism appeared on the road because it was in South America. And yeah, things started to, in a chaotic way, to make meaning and to create sense and to create a kind of structure. But this came with time.
Mm-hmm. So what I understand is that through your experiences in your traveling, you develop the understanding of clownness and join it with shamanic experiences, and all this creates a program that you're creating as a therapy to understand ourselves, to learn about ourselves, and basically wake up our consciousness, our potential inside. So we met a few years ago, actually, and I was very surprised from how you approach your teachings. Back in 2014, I remember we did an event and we came across your experiences through mutual friends and whatnot. And what caught my attention a lot, you actually say these words, a, shamanic clown experience or therapy. And in your workshops, you create this experience of playfulness. I remember you mentioned. Can you talk to me a little bit about this experience that you create, and what's the response from people?
Yes. So first, for me, it was my own experience and my own journey. And this was something of around maybe 10 years that led me in my own exploration and traveling and performing in the street. I came across shamanic cultures, and I had shamanic experiences and initiations. So in this 20s period, instead of going to a university, which I did in the first years before I started traveling, but then my university became the street, my university became the journey, the road, and the sacred plants and the ancestral knowledge. So actually, I was not receiving inspiration from going to a course and learning techniques, but I was receiving inspiration from traveling and maybe living some time with a community in the Andes or the Amazon, and through the medicine experiences with San Pedro, ayahuasca, different medicines, taking them where they grow, there was like a whole new space opening inside myself, that my natural response was to translate it into the language of what I was experiencing, that was clowning in that moment. So it was like the source of my clowning came from the journey, the outside journey and the inwards journey. And through time, I mean a long time, it kind of started to become like a pedagogy. And in a very, if I could sum it up, when we play, yes, as adults we forget to play, right? And we are programmed to play when we are children, and then we are programmed to stop this playfulness and this curiosity, and to start just following patterns that society, family, education give us. Playfulness is very anarchistic in this sense. It's like if you play and you go beyond like the established rules, a lot of things start to appear. So the beginning of creativity is playfulness. Yes, you can grab any topic and you can start playing around it without focusing on rules or laws or limits. And then many things start to show up. Many things that show up don't take you anywhere, just to have an interesting moment. But what I discovered is that through playfulness, you can enter into and collective playfulness also. Yes, you with a group you can start entering into certain spaces that I had visited through shamanism. Yes, so there was a point where in my own research of my clowning and like getting out of any preconceived structure and letting my full arise, I was realizing that I was visiting emotional, mental, physical spaces that were similar to the entheogen or psychedelic experience. Yes, not like you are tripping like whoa when you are seeing like crazy visions, but yeah, in a way your sensitivity starts to open. You can start perceiving, I would say, the present moment in a very intense way. And so the attention becomes magnified, the perception becomes magnified, intuition gets like a very, it starts to be on the first places. We collectively, we have our intuition quite locked, and we are taught not to trust what we feel. But in the space, when you enter a space and you play with a certain purpose and you do it inside of a sacred space, yes, and you focus the attention of a group, many crazy things start to happen. For example, a little bit like telepathy, feeling things that nobody is seeing, but we are all feeling that are happening. Parts of ourselves that we can also kind of disguise easily with the mask of our personality and with speaking. When we take out, for example, spoken language, and when we open expression through the body and other channels, we can't hide what we are anymore. We don't have so much control like when we are, inside of the rational mind. So I started to discover like this space that opens up through playfulness, and it's like the door, but then it takes you inside of a very deep space that not necessarily is funny, though it can be, but it can be very deep, and with certain frames, it can be a healing and transformational space that can be very powerful.
Mm-hmm. So do to have the experience of shamanic clown therapy, we can do it with or without medicine. Is it
It's without the medicine is the playfulness itself. In my sessions, I mean, I've researched it with plants for many years, and plants have showed me certain things of myself and certain doors to explore this outside of the plant medicine, right? So the plants have showed me certain attention levels and certain perception levels that help me to understand how to create frames for people to enter into these levels of attention, but without using plants, but mostly activating the bodies, the attention, yes. And then through time, I also learned how to use certain frames that are part of any ritual or any ceremony, and to create like this kind of playful ceremonies that happen inside of a sacred space. But this sacred space is a space where you can be, I don't know, crawling on the floor and laughing your ass off, you know. But you get to reach states and experiences that show you things about yourself, show you things about yourself in relationship to the rest, and that can make you click, you know, that can transform things in yourself. Because to change something, we don't only need to understand it, but we need to experience something deep around it, you know. So playing, it's always an experience, and when you put a certain frame or certain themes and you use certain tools that launch you into this playful creative attention, then you can start transforming stuff. You can access the unconscious, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I also understand that you've traveled a lot, like South America, maybe all South America, and also Europe. I
Yes.
also know that you've been in very interesting countries over there. How have you seen the difference in reaction towards these therapies with the people here in South America and in Europe? Is there
Yeah.
something in common that we have that we can
Yeah.
relate to, or different cultures have totally different experiences of learning about ourselves? And
So,
what do you think?
you know, playfulness, and I mean, I don't think I have discovered something so new. Playfulness is one of the ways of enlightening, and this is the way of the fool that we can also call the trickster archetype. It's part of the archetypical structure of our psyche. It's like one of the doors, one of the buttons to push to enter into something that we could call transpersonal, you know, beyond me, my personality, my story, the issues I'm into, you know. I can access these states where something that is common to all humanity is going on. Yes, some people call it collective unconscious, for example. Yes, we can call it in many ways. So in any culture, with indigenous people in the Amazon, with executives in a company, with people in Colombia or Argentina or Peru, or in Latvia or Russia or Switzerland, or Palestine. When you enter the void, everything is common to everyone. Like uh, there's a point where we are all the same. Yes, and this is the spot I need to reach when we do this. Right, I'm looking forward to arrive there. Now, the way to arrive there and the layers that you have to peel off to go there are different in every part. So obviously, for example, when you put a game, you know, and it's about dancing and shaking, if you're in Colombia, you know, or Ecuador, people, you know, it's very common to them. You know, they light up very, very soon. You know, and maybe if you do that in Estonia, it will take a little bit more time. You know, maybe in Austria, people will have the tendency more to ask, how can you explain this that we are doing, and how can we understand it, you know, rationally before going into it? So if I would, I think every place is different, but if I would have to Europe is more rational based, you know, and you have to peel off like these rationality layers. While in South America is more, it sounds a little bit cliche, right? But South America, it's a little bit more tied to the passions somehow, yes. But then, interestingly, it's interesting for me that, for example, yes, South Americans, you know, they are more dancers and more, you know, fiery, but maybe they are more tied in these things to forms. So, for example, yeah, they know how to dance, but they do it like, I don't know, if it's salsa, for example, you know, or stuff like that. While, for example, in Europe, maybe they don't have like this so close relationship to moving in that way, let's say with the lower chakras, but when they do it, maybe they do it more experimentally, you know, because it's not something familiar for them. So it also allows them to enter into places of experimentation, you know, which is very interesting in my work. Like what we try to do is to get out of familiar patterns. Only outside of familiar patterns is that we discover new things. So in every place, the superficial layers are different and close to the characteristics of the culture. But then the real thing starts beyond these layers, and there we all meet like human beings. And that's why this work has like this archetypical base. You know, it's based in something that is not from one culture, or is not like one personal invention. You know, the only thing I do is to kind of, I am familiar with this playful energy, is part of my nature. I am more inclined towards this direction energetically, and I have certain quality that allows me to translate this energy into frames that can push people into the experience. You know? We could call that pedagogy. Yes, so I'm very experimental and creative in my pedagogy. So I kind of create the bridge, you know, between the what I call the ordinary state of being into the extraordinary state of being through certain games and things, rituals, things that show up. You know, sometimes in many experiences, we start playing and it takes us into places I've never visited before, or you know, in the middle of this creative energy, like a new inspiration comes, and then we start doing something that we have never done before, or I have never done before. It's part of the creative path. Yeah.
Man, I feel so inspired. This is just fascinating that we can live having fun. Like,
Yeah.
we're so serious. We're working a lot, worried about money and chasing the money and dramas all around, when we can just loosen up a little bit and play. And now there's a lot of many types of therapies. There's so many types of therapies.
Yeah.
And it does carry a certain type of energy, like, okay, I'm going to therapy because I'm not doing well, and and it carries that, just how I mentioned, that energy, kind of like a little bit of depressed, or maybe just tired of all the dramas or internal blocks, to then find something fun while it also heals me. And
Yeah.
I have not, till now, since 2014 when I heard it with you, I have not seen anything like it. I know there's courses about being in circus, and I know there's theater involved that you can uh, actually heal through theater, but at the same time, it is fun for sure. But the clown shamanic is more fun. I just think just those two words are like what? So I feel that is very fascinating, and like how the world has been listening. That is it the same reaction I have, or is just okay? It's just clown shamanic. It's just a joke. Like how is there people that are with that, or you get some bad reactions with that? How's that?
Yeah. So what I do when you do it, it's very natural and very familiar. You know, it's very related to your inner child. You have done it. You know, you have done it instinctively, but you have forgotten to do it. Yes. And um, when in certain spaces, when people hear the word clown, they get like, you know, a little bit scared because they say, I'm not a clown. Clowns are like only these crazy people that show off, or that they are not shy at all, or they are ridiculous, whatever. So there's a lot of people that has shyness, for example, is one of their barriers between them and the experience of living a fulfill life, you know. So they get paranoid in front of this. In some other ambiances, uh, when they hear the word shamanism, it's also, you know, like something that it's scary. What is this, like witchcraft, or you know, do I need to? It's a religion, you know. A lot of people has, you know, many ideas because there's much said about these things, but not much known about them, you know. So during many years, I was like, for me, my own process, it was like in the beginning, I was just, you know, discover clowning for me, but then, you know, it was something else. Then I kind of started calling it shamanic clowning, and I did it for some years. But then these kind of things were also happening. And then I decided like to create this this building I'm creating and discovering, which I call Camino Creativo, which means creative path, right? So like to take the accent out of clowning or shamanism and to put it into creativity, which involves all of these things. And actually, once you are inside the experience, you will be able to connect to clowning, shamanism in a very organic way. But the idea is to find ways in which people don't get scared, because we are not doing something like, for example, yoga that already exists and everybody knows what it is. You know, it's more like something that it's quite experimental on the surface, but when you do it, when people do it, they understand it. You know, it's something that you can understand through experiencing it. And it's been an enormous challenge, like to kind of conceptualize these all these, you know, energies and experience with which go, you know, beyond words, right? In the last years, shamanism has been like growing a lot, and there's like more and more people appeal to it. So in the same way as some people are scared, other people are attracted, you know, because of it. And the same happened with clowns. You know, some years ago, it was not like there's been like a kind of boom with clowning in the last decades, I would say. Uh, but people think clowning it's about performing and performing only. And yes, as a clown, probably there will be a point where you are performing, but clowning it's more like a like self knowledge process through through art, yes, and through playfulness. So you can use a lot of elements of clowning without necessarily like having to be on a stage with a t-shirt with red lines and a red nose. You know, it's not necessary that you get to that instance, but inside of how you discover your own clown, that it's yourself without repressing your own stupidity, without repressing your dark side, without repressing like all the things you had to repress to fit in this society, which is enormously repressive, right? So it's very liberating, and as you said, it's through playfulness. Yeah, so it's like you laugh your ass off while and this is your healing, you know. But it's not only that. Actually, Camino Creativo, which I founded after 15 years of research with all of this, uses the energy of the clown, but it is elevated to its archetypical energy, like beyond the Western idea of what we think is a clown, right? So we are working with the energy behind the clown, yes, which will be common to an African or to anyone, you know. And the archetype behind, as I mentioned before, is called the trickster archetype, and uh, I use this archetype, this energy, through different exercises and experiences. But it's not the only thing, you know. Like, for people to enter into a healing zone, like where things can be really transformed and moved, they need to be defenseless. Yes, like you can go to the best, you know, doctor in the world, but if you're thinking, I won't let him in, you know, and I'm not trusting whatever, nothing will happen, you know, no matter what therapy you're doing, even though if it's the best one in the world. So the great attribute of playfulness is that it leaves people defenseless, because when you are playing, you can only play if you are trusting, and we do build up energies, exercises, you know, to build up trust, and little by little, and you start by something very small, and then, you know, you laugh a little bit, and then you realize that the other ones are a little bit stupid as well, you know, and little by little. So after a couple of hours, you know, you are not thinking anymore on the email you had to send and you didn't send, and all of these things are completely gone. You are maybe doing something you would have never thought you were doing. Maybe it's giving you an enormous pleasure, or facing you to unsolved shadow parts of yourself as well. Yes. And when everyone, you know, is like, woo, like totally on the clouds, the shamanic part comes in, you know, because what people don't know is that they are opening themselves, and not necessarily, I mean, the activity is not based in playing all the time. Playing has a purpose, and the purpose is to open up yourself, yes, and to arrive to the here and now. But when you reach this zone, we can go in many directions, you know, forgiveness, relationships, gender work, emotional work, you know. So also in my sessions, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of cathartic things going on. Sometimes there is vomit, sometimes there is sometimes we have to assist someone, because we go deep, you know. Only that we use playfulness as a tool to enter this zone. Yes.
What is the most intense moment that someone would go through?
I think what happens is that, you know, the masks fall down, and there are many people, I would say, in the last years, I felt, you know, more and more that a lot of people are looking for the masks to go down, because collectively we are more and more aware that we live in a certain kind of illusion that is going nowhere, and we need to do something about it, you know. So this is something that every year, every day, you know, it's getting more and more widespread, and this is going on. So in the last years, I meet more and more people that arrive to this, not like total rookies of themselves, but that have been doing work, you know. And some people have already started to pull their masks off, and they already know their vulnerability, you know. So they go inside and they go through the process, but not necessarily they freak out, you know. But then from time to time, there's some people, you know, that it's like a lot happening for them, maybe for the first times, and sometimes they experience the falling down of their mask, you know, without previous advice and without knowing that, and it can be intense. But luckily, you know, it never led to like a negative experience. It always was like there's a certain synchronicity inside of this, you know, because it's not about what I think should be or how I say things should be. For me, it's more like putting myself and the group in service of a higher energy, you know. And like whenever a group comes together to do Camino Creativo or a workshop, we start with a purpose that we co-create together, you know. And this purpose is that whatever this constellation needs in this here and now, we open up to receive it, you know. So we have like these, you know, frames that come from a more ancestral knowledge, you know, and that kind of give a very healthy and powerful and protected frame to everything that is going on. So I have been, you know, giving these classes since maybe 13 years now, and I didn't have one case of someone, I don't know, collapsing or having a well, there was one case last year when somebody in the beginning of a workshop broke her leg.
Wow.
And this was the I mean, I have to be honest, this happened, but this was the only one that happened. And it was, you know, this person stayed. She left with paramedics. She got like a plaster on her leg, and she came back and she stayed the 3 days. And she assumed that this that happened to her was part of her process, and she understood why, you know, by herself, you know. And I mean, I work with guidance, with protection. I mean, when you work with groups, sometimes even to, I don't know, 150 people, you know, and moving a lot of emotions, moving a lot of energy. If you are not committed, you know, to a higher force, and if you are not putting in yourself like in service of a healing which is beneficent for the collective, you know, it could be dangerous. But I think, you know, things arrive at the wrong time. Like I see a lot of people that are trying very hard, you know, to be, I don't know, to be a therapist or to be a counselor or to be a coach or to be whatever, you know, or to be an artist, like trying, you know, like and doing the formula and following the steps or taking the course or doing the marketing, whatever. I think it's part of the sign of our times, you know, like this thirst to be someone and to, you know, put yourself there and say, I am this. But in my case, you know, things only showed up when they had to show up. So I was traveling for 10 years without almost anybody knowing me, you know, without making advertising of anything. When I was invited to Europe for the first time, that was like 6 years ago, it showed up, someone that worked with me said, this would be very beneficial for my community back there. Do you want to come? And, it was not like trying to arrive somewhere, but kind of receiving, like in my garden. I have a garden, and when you plant a seed, if you stay there, like watching, like I want it to grow and I want to eat from it now, it maybe the plant doesn't even grow, but if you trust and you plant your seeds and, day by day, you water them. Magdalena, my partner, will be laughing at me because she says she waters the plants more than me, but and she does actually. But if you let the process happen and you are not ambitious to be something or someone, when you have the group there, when you have the opportunity, when you have, is because it is meant to be. And when it is meant to be, you have the protection, you have the purpose, you have the guidance, and you have, everything you need for it to be a powerful and also healthy experience, So, mhm.
That makes me think about your personal experience. So through this time, I imagine you had a lot of growth. You learn about not only yourself, but about the world. But definitely, I feel that each and every one of us have a moment in life where we need to really break through something, and we realize this darkness of ourselves inside somehow. Uh, what was your experience on that?
Mm. It happened many times, and it keeps on happening. Like, I think, I don't consider myself like a solved human being. I consider myself a person in a process of discover of my inner truth and my real self, and I chose very clearly to step off like the common track when I became 21, and it was like maybe 10 years of not necessarily getting amazing results with what I was doing, and but definitely inside feeling and realizing also through little things that were happening, on the road, that I had to keep on walking in this path, you know. So for a long time, I also didn't have money. I lived as a hippie, many years traveling with not much, uh, juggling in the street, and like doing this inwards journey a lot. And there were many instances, like this moment where you are already too far away from what you thought was your home, but it's been a long time already, and you can't go back because you are not that person anymore. But then are not so sure if what you're doing is it's okay, or maybe it's a total madness, and then you find yourself, like in the middle where you don't have, your fruit, but at the same time you already can't go back. This I experienced in my first decade in this research, and then it's always a new challenge, because for me, like, I don't have like reference, like I don't have someone that has done this and then showed me how to do it. My path, because of my nature, and I don't think it's better than any other path, it's just what I have to do. And sometimes I would like to fly away from that responsibility, and that things would be more easy or marked before, but I I already accepted it. My path is to walk towards the unknown, and Sometimes this brings a lot of resistance in the others. You know, I had to let go a lot of things of my family structure. I had to let go my country where I was born. I had to let go, for example, I don't have a pension of retirement when I'm going to be old, for example, or like many things, many securities I decided to let go in order to be free enough, because I'm not saying I'm totally free at all. I feel very conditioned by many things still, but you know, I had to renounce, to resign to many things, and sometimes you're like, is this going to work or not? You know, but luckily also, you know, since this kind of bet with life started, it's already 18 years for me that I'm 38 now. So I kind of developed this trust in not knowing, and I already been so fucked up in some ways that when the time comes again, I'm like, okay, once more, let's see where it takes us. You know, I'm not so freaked by that anymore. It affects me, and I have ups and downs like everyone, and you know, we are living in very uncertain and chaotic times, and it's not easy to wake up every day, you know, like woo. Uh, but um, but it's necessary also to do it sometimes, you know, even when the world is cracking down, and wake up like, woo, let's dance over the ruins of of this civilization that is going down, you know. So I think
Yeah.
it's more like a practice, you know, like standing the, you know, being in the eye of the storm, you know, after you have done it a couple of times and you realize the next day that you're alive, you know, and then okay, so let's move on. I think plant medicine, it's a very powerful tool also in this sense, you know, because it brings you very close to death, and it brings you very close to states that are very, very intense, and you have to find where is your strength inside of you to stand that, you know. And when you go through that, you become, you know, stronger, and you become uh, more, I would say the word for all of this is resilience, right? It's very in touch with the topic of your podcast. So it's very, it's highly important in these times we're living to develop our resilience, I think. Yeah.
Good. So this kept me thinking also, there's also many therapies, right? Like you mentioned before, and these therapies can be, some of them are new, some of them have always been, but really didn't see them. For example, music therapy. Music has always been healing us and helping us express and vibrate our emotion and make us feel better sometimes, or even help us release emotions. And now music therapy is getting a lot more popular. Specific vibration sounds that help us really tune in within ourselves. And even there's music now in some clinics to really make people feel better. And also there's other type of therapies about smell therapy, and the smell just makes us feel more alive, more happy, you know. And when we're in that state, we start understanding other types of healing process, you know. and and I also remember one that I came across but haven't done it, is laughing therapy, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know, like I can laugh for a little bit, but then you laugh on purpose, right? To the point where you're actually laughing for real. You like kind of you push yourself. I think maybe you do some of that in the process. And in all these types of therapies, I'm curious, what specifically is shamanic clown therapy? Like what exercise can we do so we can have an idea? Like group dance. I imagine you mentioned dance, some laughing. What
Yeah.
would be a specific, and how long does it take? So that's two questions. How long? What is a therapy? A day, 3 days? You mentioned.
Yeah.
Just to have an idea.
Okay, so I am very interested, and I was always very interested by holistic things, like things that have an inner coherency that involves totality. Yes, and theater is one very holistic thing inside of the arts. Yes, so inside of theater, you can see dance, there is music, there is cinema, there is scenery, there is literature, poetry, acting, all the arts come together in theater. And for me, it's one of the sciences of life. Yes, because art, it's a very magical and power tool for existence. And theater inside of the arts gathers all the arts. Yes. The same happens with shamanism. So shamanism, everything you mentioned is inside of shamanism. Music, sound, vibration, smelling, there is a lot of perfumes, plants used inside of shamanism, of ceremonies. Uh, Dancing is part, yes, which is one way to ecstasies. Yes. So shamanism and theater are both like disciplines or bodies that involve wholeness or totality. So I, as a shamanic clown, I need to work in many directions. The clown, it's in the circus. In the traditional circus, the clown was the old guy who has done everything. He has been a trapezist when he was in his 20s. He has been a juggler. He has been the presenter. He has been the one that was selling the tickets. And once they have gone through all, they can be the clown. And the clown in any moment, can suddenly hop into the trapeze or grab some balls and do something. You need to know about everything, which sounds amazing, but it's also part of a creative personality where maybe you can't focus in doing only one thing very good, but many things a little bit. I'm a little bit like that. I love to play music, and I play, I don't know, 20 instruments, but I don't play any instrument like one person that studies one instrument in depth. But if you give me something, I make it sound. So I would have loved to be an amazing guitar player that studied it since I was a child. But I'm not like that. I'm more like curious and playing everything around. So this kind of has its reflection in what I do. And basically, I have many ways to go. Yes. So a workshop of Camino Creativo in this moment is of around 3 days to begin with. Yes. But I give, many different workshops, and not necessarily inside of the structure of Camino Creativo, which is a structure that has 4 levels and a journey in the end. So it's five levels. Inside that structure, each level they start with 3 days, and then they go up to 4 days, and then to a week, and then in the end there's like a 2-week journey together. But then an experience, it could happen, I think, in no less than 3 hours. Yes, for me, 3 hours is a time where you can enter into a certain state, visit it, transform something, and then come back. For me, like the minimum amount of time is around 3 hours. So how does a session evolve, or what happens in a session? Basically, as I said, it's about peeling layers. So in the beginning, everyone's a little bit shy and like thinking, that they don't get, their hair doesn't get too messy, and they are still, very self-conscious in the beginning. So always, let's see, the sessions always happen inside of what I call a sacred space, which is something that comes from shamanism. What does it mean? Before we do something, let's come together and let's together focus our attention in deciding that this that we're going to do has a purpose and it's going to be something powerful. The only thing we need for that to happen is to decide it together. Yes. So there's always a moment where we stop the world, we stop the chattering, we stop, the coffees and whatever, and we come together, we look at each other, and we kind of compromise to put all our attention into what we're going to do so that we have a very powerful experience for all of us. Yes. This we do it in the beginning and we do it in the end. So what we do is to create like a container, yes, an energy container, yes, only by deciding it, yes. And everyone is called to think and to feel and to connect with a certain purpose. Why do you want to do this? Maybe you don't know what you're going to do, but you came here because of something. You came here because you want to change something. You came here because you are fed up with something. You came here because there's something you can't reach and you have tried in many ways. So focus your attention into this thing that it's what you want to achieve, live, transform, or obtain. Yes. So sacred space and the purpose. This is what will happen in any shamanic ceremony in different ways. Any tradition have their forms, but they do the same. They are going into a ceremony with a purpose. Once this is done, usually what I do is to start by opening up the body and opening up the attention. So I use a lot of music. I use a lot of dancing, but I am, I'm like a little bit, I'm the guy that it's there like, when you put music for people, what will they do? They will start dancing for the others. They will start like showing that they are cute or whatever, but I'm there and I'm looking at them, So I'm like, dance for yourself, This is the step you do every weekend in the bar, shake it up. I grab people, I shake them, I have my tools, I have feathers, I have stuff that I use to remind people, hey, we are here, get out of the pattern. And I also use the music in that direction, maybe there is something that everyone, and then boom, it transforms into something totally different. So there's a lot of surprise, there's a little bit of provocation. I also use smells, and what I need in the beginning is people to get to a state where their heart is beating fast and they are starting to sweat. This is like a very physical indicator that you already entered into a different level of attention and a different state, And from there, we can go in many directions. It depends, for example, the level we're doing, the purpose of the workshop we're doing. Yes. There are workshops in the beginning that, for example, the first workshop of Camino Creativo is called Awakening Your Creative Self. So it's about visiting the creative state and recognizing your creative self. There's this idea, that only artists are creative and only certain people are artists and stuff like that. So Camino Creativo is telling you, no. We are all artists because we are all creators of existence. And you can be more or less aware of that in yourself. Yes. How do I structure this? I do it through what is called the creative process. So the creative process is what any artist will have their own creative process to reach their creation. A poet will have, maybe the creative process of a poet is to get drunk and to wake up somewhere in a crazy way, and then, you know, or to fall in love with people that don't correspond them, and then, you know, this puts them in a state where they create poetry. Like, the creative process is not dogmatic, it's not a formula, and it's always different. Yes, but it always involves visiting a space outside of your comfort zone and entering in some way into what I call the extraordinary state of perception, of attention. Yes. So, lots of playfulness, and through games, understanding certain steps inside of this creative process, and understanding how this creative process can be taken into life. Yes, like, not a creative process to create necessarily a painting. If you want to create a painting, amazing, and you can also be inspired by this activity. But how can we sublime, yes, sublimate, I think it would be in English, sublimate this creative energy to understand we are creators of the experience of our existence, and existence is a creation, and I am the artist creating it. Yes. So it's all about that, you know, like, how can I use art tools inside of a shamanic frame to understand experientially, not theoretically, that life is a creation and I am the artist creating. Yes. This is the first step of Camino Creativo. Yes. And this first step gives us like the frames for all the rest of the steps, because in all the rest of the steps, we need to have like this creative mindset in which, for example, mistakes don't exist. They are opportunities. Yes. Control is not giving us creativity back. Yes. It's cutting it out. So, you know, there are many, many different aspects that you have to learn through experiences to then apply them into your life, your project, whatever. You know, there are a lot of, for example, a lot of, I teach in transpersonal schools a lot, and there are a lot of therapists, psychologists, people that do other therapies and that guide other people that come to Camino Creativo in order to become more spontaneous, flexible, creative inside of what they do. So you can take this into many other things, you know. And then the levels go, first is like awakening your creative self. Then it's called Unveil the Trickster, which is about exploring your shadow side. Yes. And learning to discover the trickster inside of you, who is tricking you to think you are a personality, you know. uh, and
I
then
love it.
the next level, the third level, it's called the life of rituals. And in this level, it's about understanding rituality and symbolic language, like the tool that every initiatic tradition throughout history, human history, has used rituality and symbolic language to communicate with the spiritual world, to communicate with the universe, to transform reality. Yes. So the essences of magic, yes, of alchemy of life, you know, you have to learn or to know how to deal with symbolic language. It's something very archetypical. It's like, for example, when we dream in symbols, right? So symbolic language is not something you learn, it's something more like you remember. Yes, it's more like it's part of human psyche. Human psyche works and creates through symbolism. Yes.
Yeah.
This third level, once you have activated your creativity and also go into the depths of your shadow to become more authentic and more aware of who you really are and to heal yourself, then we can start playing a little bit more with magic and with symbols and to start deciding what we want to create in our life and how we are going to communicate that to the universe. Yes. And then in the fourth level, it's about combining all of these three things and creating your ritual. Yes. The ritual in which you, Yoshi, me, Nico, each one in their own personal way, with their own style, not following a formula, but inspired through all the work we have done. Uh, what do you want to tell to the universe? How do you want to state your existence? If you would have the chance to decide consciously a path you want to walk and a creation you want to make, what is it? Yes. So basically in this level it's like a creative process in which each one creates something and then performs it in front of all the rest. So they are called performative rituals. Yes. It's a ritual full of meaning for that person, and all the rest we are holding the space for that person to express that in a very meaningful and powerful way. So this is in nature. It takes some days, and it's combining everything you have learned, and I am like visiting you from time to time and helping you to frame what you want to express in existence. Yes. So of course, there's a lot of ancestral knowledge involved. So everything is inside of masculine and feminine energy, polarity, everything that needs to be touched and expressed in order to have a real, meaningful ritual, which is not dogmatic, which is not religious, which is not about praying to a certain God, but it's more about understanding that with your decisions and your emotions and your expressions, you are creating your reality. Yes. So the whole thing is about assume yourself as a creator of your reality. Yes. Which I think and I feel, and it's what I have learned, it's the step to take as a humanity, the way to go to become responsible of our enormous power as co-creators of this existence.
Yeah, man, thanks for sharing. That's really amazing process and deep therapy about going through these levels that you mentioned. And especially what you're saying is that we discover that we're the creators of our own world. And of course, we remember this. We need to remember this, but most of humanity, we didn't know we could create when we can be an artist. We didn't know that. I didn't know that, and I am sure many don't. And a lot of religions, excuse me, a lot of religions or cultures don't have a connection that we can be a creator. It's separate from ourselves. There's a creator in the sky somewhere in the universe, and it's a separate thing from ourselves in a way that it limits us. It limits our imagination. And it's amazing that this therapy, this process, this workshop from Camino Creativo can allow us to not only understand it but live it, and not only live it but really break through these uh, mind programs and limits that allow us to really discover ourselves as humans, as beings of the universe, to really open up and discover our potential and our imagination,
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for sharing about all this, and I have a couple more questions before we go. But the situation here is that we want to know, especially me, and I'm sure many, where are you right now? And yeah, like we want to know, like, if we can come with you and have a therapy, or where can we meet you? Like, where's Camino Creativo
Hmm.
in this world?
Yeah. Okay. So I kept on being a nomad, and I live in Ecuador. It's like my base place, and I've been traveling once or twice a year to Europe, and right now, as a school, Camino Creativo is open in Estonia and Romania, but I also have many other students in Austria and in many other places in Europe, uh, and also here in Ecuador. The thing is that, as you know, the situation we are worldly in this moment, I have canceled my last tour, so the groups that started Camino Creativo with me in this 2020, the beginning of the year, they are, in respect to these teachings, they are in hold, and I still don't know when I'm going to be able to continue physically. In the moment, I am receiving, I am doing more one-to-one work because it's the way that it's possible now, and it's also like a very powerful way to work, which I enjoy a lot.
This is
That
online.
I do work online, and I also receive people at home. I am, when all this pandemic thing started, I said, okay, I won't be able to do my thing for a while. Let's wait a little bit, see what happens. What happens, as you know, it became longer and longer, and then the structures started to fall, and there was a point where I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life now. I had structured all of this throughout many uh, trips and years, and then when it was formed and marching, all of this happened. So I did what I do when I know something has to happen, and is to do nothing. Yes. So basically, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but let's see what happens. And I was like playing my gong at home a lot because I've been going into this vibrational field you were mentioning a lot, and it's also becoming part of Camino Creativo for the future. And I started to receive a certain inspiration. So in the moment, I'm about to launch like this one-to-one program, which I'm already doing with different people. But I'm going kind of launch it officially, let's say, as a part of Camino Creativo. And it's a process that it's through altars. Yes. I think it's also in English, it's called altar, right? You can also call it, I don't know if it's shrine, another word, but an altar, it's like a symbolic representation of your universe, of your personal universe, yes, which is yourself. And I'm doing a process in which we have interviews and meetings online once a week, and we create different kinds of altars which people create spontaneously. I ask them, for example, to create an altar for their inner child, and they do whatever comes out of of themselves. I'm not telling them it should be this way or that way, And then, they do processes with it. For example, they every day through a week they sit in front of their altar, they light a candle, and they communicate with their inner child. And after 1 week, through all this experience, they come back to me and we share, what happened with this. I discovered this, I couldn't connect, I was angry. I realized something I didn't know. I realized my childhood was very sad, but I thought it was super happy. I realized my childhood was happy, but I thought it was sad. You know, like many things can happen. So then, with the material that we gather with this experience, there's a ritual the person has to do. They do it on their place by themselves. Yes. Sometimes it's leaving symbolically something behind. Sometimes it's like manifesting something into their world that they thought they didn't have, but they have it, so they symbolize it. You know? And we go through different sessions by creating different altars. You know, we go through all the universe of the person. Yes. And the idea is to arrive to a point where you have kind of went through every part of your universe, and all of this is manifested into a major altar, which is the altar you will keep for yourself. And this altar is like a symbolic representation of your universe, and it's a dynamic, alive thing. It's not like a table with nice stones that it's decorative. It's like a table of that symbolically represents your universe, and it's dynamic. You can move things there. You can make processes there. You can call things you want to bring into your universe, or you can transmute and take out things you want to take away from your universe. Yes. Why? Because your unconscious mind needs to receive uh, um, an instruction. Yes. This instruction we are giving all the time unconsciously by how we feel, by the way we are speaking. You know, maybe we're speaking negatively about our life, and then we don't realize why all these things are happening. Always the same happens to me, blah, blah, blah. So an altar is like a tool where you can see, but in a symbolic language, the parts of yourself, and you can place them into certain parts of your universe. You can clean them, you can refresh them, you can sweeten them up, you can put fire to them, or lower the fire, you know, whatever. So it's like a frame, a structure which it's already existing, but it fits personally for every person. It's a little bit different for everyone, according to their own story, to their own issues. Yes. And this is the way I have been finding of doing something online that for me feels authentic and powerful, you know, because I didn't want to rush and just, you know, do whatever, a course online. I want to do something meaningful, and this is like what I'm going to put my attention to work with people in the upcoming times, because the collective work for me, I mean, I haven't found a way to do it online. I want to meet with the people, I want to touch, I want to see, I want to come together, you know. And the time for that will come. I send a big hug to my students in Austria and Romania and Estonia and in other parts, because we will meet again. But meanwhile, you know, this is what I have found, this altar process, yes, of creation of the personal universe. And this is what I'm doing in the moment. And well, people can contact me through social media. I am developing a web page since like 3 years now, and but it's still not online. I'm not very good with that part. But people have ways to contact me, you know, Facebook, mainly my email as well. Yes, WhatsApp, stuff like that.
Great. Awesome. So beautiful, all your work, your research, and what you have came up with. Very original, very helpful for the world right now. Many, including myself, can really learn and experience these And yeah, I'm so happy to have met you. We have encountered ourselves a few times during the last 6 years. We have mutual friends regarding regenerative culture. That's how we met. And yeah, I invite everyone to get involved with regenerative culture around your area. It doesn't necessarily have to be regenerative culture, but observe how your neighbors, how your friends or partners in school or work are involved with some type of regenerative action, which means that these decisions and actions can help create conditions for more life to exist. In order to do that, we need to observe ourselves. And like in our last episode with Wilson Ochoa from Ecuador in Cuenca, shared about his knowledge in neuroscience and psychology. Here is very similar, but an approach of a shamanic clown experience with just amazing playfulness. Get to know ourselves from where we were kids, remember ourselves, and then evolve from that with techniques and ancient wisdom mixed with modern uh, technology, including or thoughts. So I want to thank Nicolas Cambas for being here. I'm gonna drop down some links so you can find Nicolas, and also make sure you subscribe not only in his pages but also in Regenerative Culture Podcast. Invite your friends, invite your family, whoever you feel that needs to hear about what Nicolas has to say, and let the world know about how we can learn about other types of therapies. Sometimes we want to block ourselves from healing ourselves. We think we're already okay or we don't have time, but it's good to open up and really understand that there's new ways to approach ourselves. In this case, having fun, play, sing, dance, smell, listen, and reconnect with other people that we don't know, and loosen up really. And life is to be having fun, to love, to create, and realize that we're here to do that, not for anything else. Everything else is really just work and drama, but we're here to create and love and realize the potential we have inside. So thank you very much, Nicolas. I really appreciate. For sure, we're gonna be working together in future events. We collaborate a lot, so regenerative culture is our style of life for now. And remember, regenerative culture is not a new culture. It's any culture that exists, but observing a regenerative perspective. That's what I want to share. Thank you very much. This is Regenerative Culture Podcast by Collective Wave with your host Yoshi Pantera. Nicolas Cambas was with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace, love, and abundance for all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Say bye, man. Say bye.
I say goodbye. Yes.
DC.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Yoshi. It's been a pleasure. And as you said, we have been meeting, and there's a nice potential between us. And I'm very glad to keep on exploring it. And I want to send a big hug to all the audience. Probably a lot of people I don't know, and some I know as well, that will listen to this podcast. Yeah, hoping I can release my podcast soon as well. And let's say these podcasts are going to be family. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
beautiful,
thank you.
man.
Thank you very much for the space, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you. Ciao,
Okay.
ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye bye.